a very special community news from the Hill. I'm your host, Erica Fox, and today we have with us the daughter of the late great Medgar Evers and Merle Evers. Please welcome to the show, Miss Reena Evers-Everette. How are you doing today?
Hello, good afternoon. I'm doing well.
We're glad to have you here on the Hill on this day to talk a lot about what you're doing, and of course, the life and times of your parents and your dad. And I wanted to start off with saying he was basically the poster child of why you need to register to vote and why you need to get out and vote. That's to all of us. What was he to you?
Well, he was one of the poster children, and not children, adults, who actually grabbed children to be also posters of the movement. So what Medgar Evers was to me is my daddy. He was the best of the best. And I tell people a lot, you know, he was gone all the time. Going up and down the state, going across the nation, California, New York, all over to speak, to continue the fight. But he never left us with a feeling of being abandoned. It was always, when we were with him, it was quality time.
That's good.
So it wasn't, we didn't feel like we lacked anything. Of course we loved to see him, but anytime that we had important programs, you know, Boy Scouts for my brother, not necessarily Girl Scouts for me, but Boy Scouts for my brother Daryl.
Same here.
My brother Van, James Van Dyke, was a little bit too young. He was 3 when my father was assassinated. But my father always came and did such wonderful things with us. He was like the Pied Piper of the neighborhood. So when he was in town, and especially Saturdays, he was out mowing lawns, not just our lawn, but he was mowing neighbors' lawns. He was, you know, gathering the children, and we were always challenging him to races. So my father was very athletic. We lived on the bottom part of a hill, dirt road, and we would challenge them to races. We would be in the bikes, and he would be running on foot, and always beat us. But then he always he was loving, just giving, and he was a jokester. My father was a joke. Oh, well, he pulled one prank on me that's everlasting, that I got a spanking from him, which that was the only spanking I got. And I had just come the day before from a field trip to the farm, from a farm, and it was in springtime, and seeing all the new little chickadees come out, right? And knowing how they came out and all that.
Right.
Then, so that morning, the next morning, my father was very much a health nut. So he did a lot of shakes.
Okay, well, smoothies for us.
Smoothies for us, and when I think back on it, I'm like, I don't remember a blender, you know, but I remember the blender for that particular incident where he had put the milk and he put everything in, then he put a raw egg in. And then he came up to me, and his nickname for me is Sunshine.
Okay.
So he came up to me and it did like this. And so you see the egg going like this. Then you see the little red thread, right? And he goes, "See, Sunshine, look. That's supposed to be a baby chick." And then he put it on the blender and went, "Ee!" I was traumatized.
I can imagine, yes.
But I wouldn't eat eggs for the longest time after that. And I'm very particular about my eggs now. But he was a jokester, and he loved to have fun.
How does an 8-year-old, well, I guess growing up really, you're 8 years, how do you wrap your head around what he was doing? Did you really fully understand the dynamics of Dad has to go to work, Dad has to go, different parts of the state or out of the country because he's working for other people. How do you wrap your head around that? Or you just think of it as Dad has just gone on a work trip?
It wasn't, there was never 100% wrapping your head around what your parents were doing, because they still wanted us to be children. There was definitely an understanding, for several reasons, that my father was doing very dangerous work and very important work. And going up to the NAACP office on Lynch Street, the Masonic Temple, we would always go in and we would be in the mass meetings. He would bring us into the mass meetings. He would bring us into some of the meetings that he was holding, strategic meetings. So it wasn't that we were sheltered totally from it. We were involved. There was a point that there was a boycott campaign for Capitol Street, and don't shop where you can't use the restrooms. And so my mother took us down there, but not stayed for long. And so we were involved in what was going on, knew what that meant, but came back with the sense of knowing that Dad's doing something to help everybody.
So you and I are around the same age. So you grew up in Jackson, Mississippi. I'm growing up in Northern California.
Really?
Yes, and I saw that. But I did not experience where it's whites only, coloreds only, drinking fountains and bathrooms. But you experienced that?
Yes.
And what was that like for you?
When it's so-called normal, as a child, you don't think so much that it's totally wrong. You are, my father used to tell us, we're changing this. We're changing this. But experiencing going into the different bathrooms, drinking from the different water fountains, but what hit us the most was when we couldn't go to the swimming pool until after the pool was closed to the general public.
Really?
There was a colored day to go.
Wow.
And it wasn't necessarily cleaned. Then also going to the movie theaters, and you would have to go through the back stairs up to the rooster's nest, as they used to call it. And you watch TV from the balcony, which actually was a good thing. Frankly, I don't know why they complained about it. It was a good thing. We could see everything. So there was noticeable differences there. When my father was fighting after Brown versus Brown, my father also put in he put in a charge for Daryl Kenyatta Evers versus the state of Mississippi. So it was about integration going in. That did not come to fruition when we were there. But what's interesting, and I'm going to kind of segue back to where you said you grew up in California. After my father was assassinated, my mother, a year after my father was assassinated, my mother moved us to California, but to Southern California. And that was very interesting, simply because we didn't want to move. We had all our friends and family in Mississippi. And when we came up the street to go to the neighborhood and to the town that held town meetings to find out if the town would allow us there, number one, and how the town will handle it. To go into that environment, and your introduction into that environment is as you turn the street and go into the neighborhood. It's on a Saturday, and I still see it vividly, where everybody's out there doing their lawn, washing the cars and everything. Kids are out playing, and all of a sudden they see us driving through and said, they're here, the niggers are here. And you see parents pulling their kids in, nasty words being shouted, but we get to the house, And we get in, and then we have neighbors who are very engaging and comforting and supportive and protective and welcoming us in. So you left from one hotbed to another hotbed, and my brother Daryl and I integrated the public schools there.
Wow, that's quite an experience. I want to jump forward if I can. In 1989, you and your brothers and your mom decided to reopen the case. In 1994, Byron De La Beckwith was found guilty. And in 1996, the hit movie Ghosts of Mississippi was released, and you became executive director of the Medgar and Reena Evers Institute. And we do want to say that it drives for positive social change, conversations across generational lines, which I think is key in getting especially the young people involved in what he was involved with. How do you encourage and inspire young people, especially our college-age students, to get involved in learning their history, getting involved in registering people to vote, and especially going out to vote? What do you do?
Go on the ground.
Boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground. You go to the sources. That's why I'm so happy to be here. But we have partners in this also that are helping us with mentoring programs from middle school children. Start talking about civic engagement, start talking about the movement, start talking about their history and bringing their history to them and how important it is, especially in Jackson.
Yes.
Especially in Mississippi, and where we are now in Alabama. But then we go out and we hold focus groups, but it's not really a focus group, it's a conversation.
Exactly.
It's a conversation. Exactly. It's a conversation saying, what is it that you're looking for in life? How do you think that it's possible that you can do what you do now? What responsibility was it for the forefathers to help you get to what you have now? And then what can you do? What are you willing to do in your life to help all of us in humanity to be equal? Then we go through processes and workshops, and then we go to get out the vote. And that's a critical component because that's the power. Economic and power. And so they are helping us register to vote and pulling all generations in and doing circles to say, hey, this is what I need to hear from you. And I need you to hear me, which is critical.
So what is a website people can go to and get more information, that wisdom that you're giving?
And we're updating it. So it could be in the now, and that's the eversinstitute.org.
Alrighty, be involved, get engaged, and just be encouraged, and please share the information for others and with others. We want to thank you so much, Ms. Reena Evers-Everette, for being a part of Community News from the Hill and, of course, coming to Alabama A&M University. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
We appreciate you. Thank you all so very much. We appreciate you listening and watching, and have a great day.